Hey everyone, Flimthany Flamtano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for another vinyl update, where I show you guys the recent acquisitions that I've made that have gone into the vinyl collection over here. Although we do have a good handful of cassettes in this vinyl update, so be on the lookout for that toward the end of the video. So let's get into this handful of records that I have over here. This first one was actually passed to me by a fan of the show through my P.O. box. It is a group by the name of The Commons. They are out on Burger Records. There seems to be just 500 copies of this thing, so maybe they're still in circulation, although I'm sure you could acquire this thing digitally. And if you take a look at the front cover here, not only will you notice that there is a rad little Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle riding on a wave going into the city, some tidal wave I imagine or something, but also we have a descriptor over here right under the band's name, Psychedelic Cumbia Punk. Some pretty big labels there for people who are familiar with these genres. And I gotta say, maybe I was a little disappointed when I actually got my ears on this thing. It didn't seem so much punk as it did like a garagey surf rock band, because that's kind of what punk passes for these days. A lot of underground bands are kind of doing this surf rock thing. It's a very cool little purple color. Got a little splatter in there too. So it's more of a surf rock thing, more of a beach rock thing, and as far as the psychedelic element goes, as psychedelic as this record gets, the guitars are a little overly reverby, so they kind of bleed into everything else. Other than that, I would say some of the tracks do most definitely have a Latin flavor, though sometimes that comes, sometimes that goes, you know, so don't expect every track to have kind of this spicy Latin vibe, although it would seem, at least from the first half of the 10-inch here, that all the lyrics are sung in Espanol. So, you know, they're definitely not, you know, trying to make an English record here. You know, there's definitely a Latin flavor, at least to the degree of the language spoken on these tracks throughout the entire EP. I like what the band is doing. You know, there's definitely some interesting ideas here, although sometimes it seems like there's this sort of amateurish vibe to it that I think kind of works against the enjoyability of the EP. Like, it's a little too messy, like the performances aren't as tight as I would have liked them to be, but still it's a relatively interesting little 10-inch, and definitely not the sort of run-of-the-mill thing that you hear or expect from Burger Records. So there you go. There's the first little release right there. Next one is one that I picked up in New York. It was $8. It's an 80s rock classic, and there's so many songs on it already that I know that I like. You can't really go wrong with the boss, Mr. Bruce Springsteen himself, Dancing in the Dark on this thing. Cover Me is on this thing. If you haven't heard this record, do yourself a favor. I mean, it's an 80s rock classic. There's not really a horrible song on it, in my opinion. Nothing too flashy or impressive about the packaging, because it seems like it's just kind of the original packaging, and records like this are so cheap, even if they are sort of printed in the era that they were originally made in, because there are just so many in circulation. You know, it's like you could probably run across a copy of this anywhere used in decent condition at your local record store. So, you know, again, if you do actually end up in that situation, do yourself a favor and pick this up, because this is a good rock record. You know, very catchy songs, passionate performances. Bruce's vocals are great. The lyrics are great. And also, you know, it's a very distinctly American record. And I don't just mean like it's blindly patriotic like a lot of American records today tend to be. You know, it's obviously inspired and in love with the country that it comes from, but on songs like Born in the USA, there's an element of critique there too. So there you go. Born in the USA. Bruce Springsteen. E Street Band. Alright, this is me on this next one, essentially trying to expand my Dylan collection over here. Although maybe not coming out as pleased as I hoped I would be. You know, I've heard many people hype up the Basement tapes again and again and again and again. You got to hear the Basement tapes. You got to own the Basement tapes. It's kind of like an essential Dylan record, although I'm not as enamored with it, to be completely honest. The performances I thought were maybe a little too rough. Bob Dylan's vocals, his vocal performances, really not his best. But it is in good condition. You know, the records are in great condition. The jacket's a little beat up, but, you know, it sounds good. You know, if you're really trying to hear Bob Dylan in the raw here, and you are a Dylan completist, I see no reason not to pick this up. You know, there are at least some decent tracks on it. But, you know, don't expect to come out of this thing as wowed as you would be with, like, Highway 61 Revisited or something like that, you know. So yeah, you know, and again, Dylan's a great, so it's sort of to be expected that you're going to run across people that are like, oh yeah, that Dylan record's great, that Dylan record's great, every Dylan record is great. But, you know, I guess I'm just a little too picky sometimes, as you guys already know. But not too picky to keep this thing because, again, there are highlights on here. It does give you, assuming you're a Dylan fan, an opportunity to hear him in a different light, hear him in a different sort of frame of reference. You know, again, a lot of his records in the 70s and especially the 80s weren't necessarily as raw or as stripped down or as wild or as folky as his earlier output in the 60s. So, you know, it's kind of interesting for him to kind of go back a little bit on this record and do something, you know, a little more on the fringe. So yeah, Basement tapes over here. This next one is going to be a quick one because I don't think I'm going to open it. It's just Kendrick Lamar's Untitled Unmastered, and you can see the reflection, like, of the camera in the vinyl because it's still wrapped up. And as you may notice, it is signed. It is a signed copy. It's a squiggled copy. I don't think I'm gonna open this thing. I think I'm just gonna leave it closed. You know, I know how it sounds. It's a demos album, so I'm not really sure that hearing it on vinyl is going to sort of enhance the experience of the record. I just want to preserve this as much as I can because it's signed, so I'm not going to open this. It's not going to be opened. I'm just showing you guys that I got a signed copy because I was in on sort of that early run of signed copies that Kendrick was selling off of his website, so it's got a squiggle, and I actually bought another copy signed for a giveaway that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. Assuming that the bumper for it is still there. And that squiggle's different. So he's really squiggling each one. So I'm not going to open this one. I'm sorry, guys. Believe me, this is not something I typically do. As you guys already know from seeing pretty much all of my vinyl videos thus far, if you have, I open my shit and I listen to my shit. And, you know, I handle it. I show you guys. But this is just one... you know, instance where I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it. It's just going to stay. Not going to mess with it. Just going to leave it there. It can stay there. And there it will stay. All right, moving on, we have a couple more. Kraftwerk Autobahn, classic piece of electronic music over here. If you're not familiar with these guys and you're into electronic music or you want to know more about the history of electronic music, you got to listen to Kraftwerk. And, you know, especially this track over here. Fun, fun, fun on the Autobahn. Fun, fun, fun on the Autobahn. 22-minute epic right there. Back in the day when electronic music was stripped back, long-winded, and patience testing, but also fun and sort of creative and definitely pushing the envelope for the time. Very cool labeling over here. I wanted to point this out. Sort of the what looks like UFOs over here. Very cool. I like that a lot. You know, it's just a very pretty label. You know, plays at 33 1/3. It's an older copy, but it's in pristine condition as far as the quality, the record goes. So I was really happy about that. Plays great, sounds fantastic, and you know, again, just adding to my Kraftwerk collection. over here. I have several records from the group already, so it was, and this is another one of their sort of classics, their essentials. So I'm not sure how much further I have to go before I have all the albums of theirs that I want, but I think I'm almost there. All right, a few more. This one you guys know. I pre-ordered this. This was pre-ordered, of course. Pre-ordered this shit, ba-bam! It's a gatefold, although the insert art I'm not really that enamored with. I'm not sure exactly what's going on here. Kind of confused by the whole thing. You know, obviously this is the back cover, which you guys have seen if you've seen the album art online. And we do have an exclusive color here because I guess I pre-ordered it. Over here we have the lyric sheet. 3 bedrooms and a good neighborhood. Sorry, I'm just looking at this in the camera, make sure I'm framing it correctly. So please excuse me if my eyes divert from the lens a little bit. And the record over here is a pretty somewhat clear yellow, so it matches the yellowy, I guess, sort of tone and hue of the binder over here. So it's a nicely put together package. Good job, Death Grips. You know, you put together a nice little gatefold over here, I suppose. Their previous records, I think this might be their first gatefold. No, okay, so the Powers That Be was a gatefold, obviously, because that's a double album, but this is a single album over here. All their others have just kind of been in sleeves and stuff like that. So, you know, we have another Death Grips gatefold over here. And enjoying that and sort of seeing this picture clearer, it's really no less confusing. It's still a confusing front cover. Okay, we are going to get into some of the cassette releases over here that I have been passed. First, I just want to give a shout out to Dream Catalogue, who actually passed me some of the cassettes over here, along with a vinyl copy of the new 2814 record, Rain Temple. You guys may know that I've already reviewed this not too long ago. Wasn't too crazy about it, but they actually put together a really nice vinyl package on this thing. I know they usually put together good cassette packages, but the vinyl package on this thing is great. Nice matte finish on the cover, not some crappy, shiny, cheap finish. It's a wonderful gatefold over here with liner notes and the classy song titles listed and everything. And the double record itself is kind of a really milky off-white color with some, you know, like little purple notes kind of thrown into there, if you noticed. It's very, very subtle. It may vary from record to record. You know, some records might have a little bit more extra sort of colors worked into there. But yeah, just kind of like a milky, opaque kind of color with a clear sleeve. Again, they put together a good package on this thing. So if you're in love with this record, I highly recommend getting this on vinyl because, again, good packaging, good package. So you won't be disappointed with the look. And I don't know if Dream Catalogue has dabbled that often before in vinyl. This might be their first vinyl, not totally sure. But if it is, for kind of a first go, they did a great job. But again, not too surprising given how much effort they continue to put into their cassettes and how good and quality they always turn out to be. Now the cassettes that they passed along, a handful of artists over here, Shema 33, here's the cover over here, and this is most definitely on the more ambient side of the Dream Catalogue spectrum. There is a liner note in here where the artist is talking about how great care went into the compositions of this tape, and it definitely shows. You know, while the music on this thing is soft and it's subtle, it does progress nicely from point A to point B. It doesn't stagnate for too long or anything like that. And it's very soft, it's very pretty, it's very relaxing. It has kind of that spacey, retro-futuristic synth patch sound aesthetic that you expect from most Dream Catalogue releases. Yeah, it's a very nice little black cassette over here. And yeah, there you go. All right, moving on, a couple more from these guys. We have this next one. I am Chesu Matsuda. Okay. This one is less ambient, more on the progressive synth side of the spectrum. Some kind of weird experimental auto-tune vocal passages that kind of reminded me of some music from the latest One Oh Tricks Point Never album, Garden of Delete. If you're looking for something that, again, has that same kind of spacey, retro-futuristic synth sound that most Dream Catalogue records do, but it's a little more meaty and experimental, I heard some, like, guitar leads on this thing, like distorted, buzzing guitar leads. Dream Catalogue really diversifying with some of their new releases and bringing on some cool ambient artists and experimental electronic music artists who are really trying to do something different. You know, it's not just another, you know, micro house record. It's not just another techno record. These guys are really doing some odd stuff with electronic music, you know, with home produced music. You know, I think they deserve some props for that, for sure. And finally, Wolfenstein over here, putting together an interesting album over here, the Brazil World Cup 2034. And, oh, I want to actually say this is a really cool red cassette, the Chesumata cassette. Very cool red cassette. They're putting together the nice cassettes. Good job, guys. Also, Wolfenstein over here with the beautiful little green cassette over here with the... with kind of like the Brazil stickers over here. You know, he really went into this concept and just came out flying colors, I would say. This is most definitely one of the weirdest and the meatiest albums I've heard on Dream Catalogue Records. He's like mixing those spacey synthesizers with elements of dance music, with elements of Latin music, and yet there's also something kind of, I don't know, apocalyptic about it as well, like it's kind of dreary too. It's an odd release from Dream Catalogue, and Wolfenstein, I give him all the credit in the world, or WOSX, as he is sort of credited here. All the credit in the world for sort of coming together with such a creative mix of sounds and influences on this thing. I got past this next cassette from either the band or maybe someone who's a fan of the band. They also sent me like a few download cards for stuff like Pig Destroyer or something, which was actually pretty nice of them. The name of this group, Abated Massive Flesh, and the name of this tape is Brutal Death. Let me give you kind of a look as to what's going on here. This guy's like crucified, the band's logo almost completely unreadable, obviously. And this is some very nasty, like death grind kind of stuff. It's very noisy, it's blood-caked, it's filthy, and listening to this thing on cassette, while it's not exactly poetry the way that it's composed, it's kind of like jun 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 jun, you know, with the occasional like guitar lead thrown in there in between all the chugs. They're obviously like a duo, it sounds like, because you're mostly just hearing vocals, single guitar or almost, and just like, you know, really fast, brutal drums. And listening to this thing on cassette really makes me appreciate the importance of the medium that you're listening to something on. Music like this thrived on the cassette medium in the 80s and the 90s as tape trading for this extreme type of metal music, which was hard to come by a lot of the time because it wasn't on big labels, or it wasn't on a whole lot of labels, and the labels that it was on, it didn't get printed in a whole lot of copies. So again, stuff like this thrived on cassette, and it sounds great on cassette because the brittle, crappy, distorted guitars, the cassette kind of takes the edge off of those a little bit. It kind of blends the guitars with the drums, makes everything sound a little fatter, bigger, heftier, nastier. You know, just kind of the beauty of this stuff, of this kind of music, even when it's kind of rough and amateurish in the way that this is, I think is kind of lost in the digital age a little bit. And just, you know, if you get a chance to hear either this cassette or a cassette in the same genre, you know, it may sort of ring in a different way to your ears because, again, of the platform, of the medium that it's being played off of. And a couple more cassettes over here that I'm just going to kind of mention in one group. This person sent these to my P.O. box. Premium Escape is the name of this artist, or Premium ESC. And this guy is pretty much embracing every vaporwave cliche in the book. Not just visually, but also musically as well. You know, it sounds like you're getting a lot of the contemporary R&B samples slowed down, sort of the contemporary jazz kind of stuff. But even though, again, it's sort of like every vaporwave cliche I've ever heard, including, like, you know, there's like this mall sort of picture over here, you know, just like all the pictures of like this 2000s era culture, like late 90s culture. It's like, oh, hey, look at this computer, this weird digital desktop space or whatever. The dude seems to have put like quite a bit of effort into like the labeling on the cassettes, because there's cool stickers on every cassette. And as far as like vaporwave cliches go, it's not too bad, you know, like the sampling is cool, it's like wavy and catchy, and it's sweet on the ears, and it's most definitely has an alluring vibe to it. So Premium ESC, you know, one of them is named Habitats, the other one is titled Domestication, the other one sort of seems to be self-titled, I can't quite tell, but I'm going to keep these because, you know, they're cool little artifacts from the vaporwave era, and yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. This has been this vinyl update, guys. I appreciate you watching, hanging out with me, watching me just kind of finger through some of the new releases that I've gotten my paws on. Probably have a little more vinyl in the next one. You know, I just had all these cassettes kind of piling up, and I just wanted to give them all a shout out in this episode because some of them were interesting to me. So, and I plan on giving them a little more attention as the weeks come on and I get a little bit more free time, because I do have a cassette deck now and I can listen to these cassettes, and, you know, especially some of these Dream Catalogue cassettes, it seems like the label's really kind of diversifying and trying some new things, and you know, embracing the artistic desires of some of the artists on their label who are clearly, you know, trying something different than your average vaporwave artists, or a lot of the artists who you could call vaporwave, who the label is putting out releases from early on. All right, guys, you're the best. Transition. That has been another vinyl update, guys. I appreciate you watching. It means a lot. There are links on this screen right now. You can subscribe to this channel. You can check out our official site. You can check out the previous vinyl update, and you can check out the playlist of vinyl updates that we have, which have compiled over the years, which you can essentially watch the progression of my whole record collection through those videos. And yeah, that's it, guys. All right, have a good one. Hope you're well. Stay hydrated. Eat those fruits and veggies. Listen to some music that you like forever.